All right, so moving right along, we still haven't finished with this situation. We got to look at a few more things. This is not an exhaustive list of problems that raise doubts about the historicity of the infancy narratives. For example, we could go into the genealogies of Jesus. The genealogy of Jesus found in Matthew, there's two genealogies in the New Testament, one in Matthew and one in Luke. The genealogy of Jesus in Matthew does not agree with the genealogy of Jesus in Luke. And neither one is free of major difficulties. Look at those two documents there. Here we have the 3 generations preceding Jesus. You have 2 different paternal grandfathers. Come on, folks, that doesn't happen in reality. So one is not being wantonly skeptical in judging that it is not so easy to classify one narrative as historical and the other as symbolic. You're going to say that Matthew's symbolic or Luke's? They both have problems with historicity. Genealogies in antiquity are not like what you get in Ancestry.com. Genealogies in antiquity were drawn up only after a person died and became famous. If you died and a lowlife, condemned criminal lowlife from a lowlife village, but then you were raised up to Skyvault, I'd say that'd make you famous. And the same is true of childhood accounts. No one remembered childhood. In our culture, everything is centered on the children because they're the future. Well, that's our culture. That's not the biblical Middle Eastern culture. No one remembered childhood. But after a person died and became famous, then that famous person would receive a stereotypical childhood. They would have their childhood drawn up for them. Do you understand? That isn't only true with Jesus, by the way. That's true with That's true with Alexander the Great. That's true with Caesar, Julius Caesar. Do you understand? Jesus died a shameful death. Crucifixion was reserved for the worst criminals. And prior to that, he was a lowlife from a lowlife family. Peasant, day laborer. But shortly after his death, Jesus was seen alive and risen by friends. It was to him that he would soon return from Skyvault to inaugurate theocracy. Since only God can raise someone from death, and God wouldn't do this, right, for a shameful person, the raising of Jesus from the dead by God bestowed unimaginable honor upon Jesus. What did that mean? It meant that Jesus' life story would therefore require that all this honor gets spelled out in detail. I'm giving you the matrix for why we have 2 infancy narratives. The purpose for the infancy narratives is to explain why God should make a lowlife cosmic Lord. That's why they were written. Do you know what we think, Americans, when we read the infancy narratives? They were written to give us a detailed biography of Jesus' early years. So you'll even see this in study Bibles. Children's study Bibles will say, let's read Matthew chapter 1 and 2, or let's read Luke chapter 1 and 2, and the header will be something like, what was the birth of Jesus like? What happened? What was Jesus' hometown? And stuff like that. In other words, it's geared towards Americans and American questions. What happened? Where is he from? Who, what, where, when, and why? Give me all these little details. No. That is not what the purpose of these texts were. These infancy stories were drawn up to explain Jesus' honor rating.
That makes sense.
This is an honor-shame culture, right? And inspiration happens in. You have to take the in and inspiration seriously. Okay. The purpose of the genealogies and the childhood accounts is not primarily factual information, but rather a deliberate attempt to connect a person to the family group in the present, in this case the fictive family of the Jesus groups writing it down, Matthew and Luke, which has roots in the past and to give some inkling of what one might expect of this person. What is this culture based on again? Honor. Your ranking, your claim to value in the pecking order of the village, and the village's recognition of your claim. That's honor. The genealogy and the childhood accounts also communicates honor, primarily ascribed honor, which you get just by being born. Ascribed honor is the reputation that you inherit at birth, but it can also be ascribed by God or the king or elites. This means honor can be ascribed by those who can claim honor for others and force public acknowledgement of that honor because they have the authority and standing to do so in the society. Now, look here. If you open up the Gospel of Matthew and you look at the first page, what you get is a genealogy, right? This is not an Ancestry.com exact genealogy, right? This is a manufactured genealogy, folks. You go to a village in the Middle East and you ask somebody for their genealogy, they're only going to give you 3 names. Those 3 names are their father, their grandfather, and their great-grandfather. They can't go back any far. Nobody was alive to remember or verify that. But they may give you 3 other names. Those 3 other names are the ancient ancestors that everyone in the village can claim as their ancestors. And the names in between, if they give you a long list, they're made up. Okay, so what Matthew does is he wants to tell us the honor of Jesus, right? How does he do it? Matthew has artificially given Jesus 3 sets of 14 generations. Between Abraham, which he starts his genealogy off with, from Abraham to the time of David, there's 14 names, 14 generations. From David to the time of the Babylonian captivity, there's 14 names. And then from the time of the Babylonian captivity all the way to Jesus, there's supposed to be 14 generations. You follow? The emphasis is on the number 14 because 14 in the ancient Israelite mind means David. How is that possible? Well, here's the deal. Ancient people didn't have spare alphabets lying around to denote number systems like we do. We have Sanskrit and Arabic to denote our number system, right? The way we draw 1, the way we draw 2, the way we draw 3. You know, that's not how ancients had it. Ancients didn't have spare cultures, alphabets lying around to use to denote their numbers. So their alphabets had to do double work. Their alphabets had to be also their number system. So alpha, beta, gamma, delta also have numerical values. 1, 2, 3, 4. You get up to the 10th letter and you start going up by 10s. You get up to that 10th and you start going up by 100s, and then you have enough numbers to do math. What this means is by a process called gematria, names and words are also numerical sums. Because if the letters also have a numerical value, you add up the letters and you get a number, right? Okay. Remember I told you that in Matthew's genealogy, you got 3 tiers of 14 names each, right? 14 generations. The Hebrew form of the name David, Hebrew has 22 letters in its alphabet, no vowels. It's all consonants. The name David is DVD, or Dalet, Wa, Dalet. Dalet, Vav, Dalet. DVD. All right? Now look at the numbers underneath the letters as you look at the alphabet there. The Hebrew form of David is DVD, and each successive consonant of the Hebrew alphabet is used as a number. Thus, D equals 4, or Dalet equals 4, Vav equals 6, and Dalet equals 4. DVD is 4 plus 6 plus 4, which equals? That's why in the ancient world everybody knew 14 equals David. So what is Matthew trying to say? Jesus has the honor rating of David. There you go. That's the point. David's name is Hebrew, adds up to 14. What Matthew is doing is saying, ain't I clever? I'm drawing up this genealogy, which is really your honor rating, the honor rating of Jesus, and I'm showing you David's honor. That's what I'm showing you. That's what I'm invoking by emphasizing 14. For Matthew, David is a key element of Jesus' ascribed honor. He can trace lineage back to King David. He's not a low-life construction worker. No, he's really the son of David, the source of Jesus' family honor. So don't close the book. You can keep listening. But David does not stand at the head of this genealogy. He's not the apical ancestor. The apex is Abraham. That's where David himself derives his honor, and all others, including David and Jesus, have to be interpreted and reinterpreted. So Abraham, the first patriarch, heads Matthew's listing of the genealogy of Jesus. He is the one who received the divine promises of children, land, and reputation. In order to understand the Matthew's genealogy, you have to really get into the Old Testament, don't you? You really have to understand that. So, since David is mentioned next at the head of his list of 14 names, Matthew intends that the reader interpret son of Abraham in terms of son of David. Okay? Abraham now takes on royal significance. Translation of the Hebrew Bible, the Septuagint, renders Genesis chapter 23, verse 6 this way. You, say the Hittites to Abraham, are a king from God among us. So what Matthew seems to be is familiar with this Israelite tradition that associated Abraham with kingship, and he incorporates it into Jesus' genealogy by associating Abraham with King David. So we get in our Christmas party together. It's okay. Things aren't in danger.
So that means that we're all descendants from whoever.
It means that Matthew has accepted wholesale that Jesus is risen from the dead. But Matthew the Mediterranean has to show that that's not against the experience that only people deserving honor get honor. So Jesus has to, I have to give you a reason. So yeah, right, he has Davidic ancestry. By the way, a lot of people had Davidic ancestry. David had a lot of wives, produced a lot of children. But what I want you to get in mind here is that Matthew is saying, hold on, don't worry. He's a son of David, the son of Abraham. The honor is there. Matthew's saying, it's okay. It was hidden. It was a diamond in the rough. It was a diamond in the rough. We didn't know it was a diamond, and God has revealed this diamond to us. Okay? He's got to. Because ancient people, see, Rose, they could get that great people produce great people. Like produces like. Great people produce great ones. Low life produce low life. What the Mediterranean ancient person could not wrap his head around is when a low life produced a great one.